Hey guys, welcome to another commentary done by Diggity. In the bottom left hand corner we have Future starting as the blue Protoss. Upper right hand corner we have EGNyoken going as Mug in this I'm not sure if that's the one the handle he uses on Battle.net or not. He's the Terran in the upper right hand corner, going to be sporting the nice red color, and this is on Naga Caverns. And if I was going to favor one player in this matchup, I'd probably favor Nyoken. No offense to Future, but I feel like Naga Caverns, just because of the harassability of a lot of the Terran units. I'm not sure if that's actually a word, but essentially the ability of Terran to harass wide open natural expansions makes it a lot more difficult for Protoss players, particularly early on when you're talking about one base, two base play, because essentially what Terran have the option of doing is taking an expansion where Protoss have to play a little bit more on the cuff, or they have to go and be aggressive. And I think Terran like it when opponents have to come to them, particularly when they're prepared for it. So Future already sending out an early scout immediately after Pylon. Nyoken, in the meantime, starting to seal his front door. And if I was going to say one thing about Nyoken, I'd say he's just a really smart player. And I mean that across the board. When it doesn't matter what he's playing, poker, League of Legends, Starcraft, he's just really smart. He just understands games is really what it comes down to. And I think that really shows in his playstyle. Future needs to get that probe out of there. Does manage to. In the meantime, looks like he's planting a gateway, so not doing anything too crazy. Did get the scouting information he wants, and let's see if he's going to keep this probe in here. Looks like he's doing some nice harassment on that SCV on the front lines, but needs to hurry up and escape while he still has the opportunity to, taking a little bit of additional damage from that probe. And the probe actually still wandering out. Looks like he just wants to keep it in, or at least nearby, until that first Marine is produced. In the meantime, Nyoken should be able to seal off that front door, actually, well, actually no, he's going to leave that SCV back, and so Future's going to wander that probe back in now that it has full health, and continuing to harass that front door. Does manage to catch the SCV just as the barracks finishes, and that always hurts early. And I'm sure Nyoken's frustrated about that. Refining some gas in the meantime, and it looks like Future is doing the standard, very safe single gateway cybernetics core opening, and it looks like Nyoken did manage to steal a little bit of minerals right off the bat, and Future now adding a second gas now that Nyoken's kind of moved out. Looks like he's going to go straight to Stalker and Trin. It looks like maybe an end around here. I like that from I like this from Nyoken, just leaving the base to try to get Future to commit to a build, and it looks like he was successful in doing so. Is going to run back in, see that assimilator, so he knows he's going to be facing either a larger infantry push consistent of three gate Stalker and robotics facility, or perhaps maybe even a 1 gate early robotics facility build, which would actually be my initial belief right off the bat. I'm going to chrono boost that first Stalker out to try to kill that SCV early, to play a little bit more, to basically force Nyoken to play in the dark. And it looks like the probe actually doing a great job of getting a lot of scouting information and remaining alive. Concussive shell upgrade, it looks like, alongside a first Marauder being produced. No additional tech lab just yet. Marine alongside. We'll see once that concussive shell finishes. Usually that comes out as soon as that second Marauder is finished, if Nyoken decides to kind of test things on the front line, or if he takes a little bit more of a defensive posture. Future hanging out at the Naga watchtower here in the meantime, and that first Stalker wandering out to first of all deny information before he reveals anything else. And Future actually posing as though he might go one base into expansion, which again, yeah, he's going to go one gate into expansion, which is extremely difficult to pull off on this map. Already Nyoken starting to push forward with just a handful of troops. He looks like he does have 2 Marauders, 2 Marines, and he's definitely going to see this expansion, and I don't know that Future's even going to be able to cover it with just what he has. There's that sentry, and he'll be able to block that ramp, but not going to be able to do a lot about defending this very exposed nexus. I don't think he's going to have the troops to really push anything additional out, so trying to get some additional gateways down. I think he was hoping that Nyoken was going to go to expansion. Perhaps what Nyoken was showing him was a little bit more of an expansion build, but Nyoken in the meantime actually pushing a lot of troops forward, so that single Stalker starting to wander out. So Nyoken going to strike first blood at the very least, force Future to cancel this nexus, while he's actually had all of those 400 resources invested in attack units. And I don't know, even between this, if he plays it right, kind of pushing up and down the ramp, he should really be able to hurt Future early, not just by denying this, but by also forcing him to build a lot more troops than perhaps he wanted to. A nice force field to catch just a single Marauder on that high ground, trap a lot of those Marines in as well. But it looks like Nyoken was able to snipe one of the sentries, but not able to get the second. And it looks like Future was able to pin, with some really nice micro, able to pin some more troops to really draw some blood as well. So EGNyoken in the meantime needs to pull back a little bit on that Marauder production. He's probably just going to settle into getting an expansion of his own up now that he has a significant army out. Not a huge army, but a significant army. And as far as the Harvester count goes, he is actually a little bit behind, but Future's starting to move out. He has been denied that expansion. I almost feel like a little bit, and it just might show you EGNyoken a little bit of a lack of practice time sending out an SCV to do some scouting for him now, but actually falling back and kind of losing the economic lead here. Looks like he's behind a little bit on SCVs. I don't see any additional tech. Sorry, I take it back. He's going to go to factory reactor starport, so just going to stick to one base. Wow, one base play. Perhaps doesn't want to have to bother trying to defend this very exposed natural expansion, and instead wants to play some dropship positional play sort of thing. In Future, unfortunately, is going to see this coming because that probe able to wander right into that natural expansion, see absolutely everything. Well, see essentially that there's no expansion there, which essentially reveals everything. He knows he's going to have to be absorbing an attack someplace or another, and let's see if he gets sufficient troops out to really cope with it. It looks like he already has that first Immortal supplying, but I almost feel like the best way to deal with Terran cheese across the board, though, is produce some sentries, produce some stalkers, and just try to absorb what's coming, because most of the time you got to expect that it is dropship, and it looks like we are seeing some dropships being produced, additional barracks as well. And so EGNyoken is really going to just go for one base play, it looks like, and try to strike a lot of blood early, because he is kind of overcosting himself. This is more or less full production off of one base. Can't really produce any more off of it. Looks like Future now with a solid economic lead, now that he has that second Nexus up and is mining, should double his production value. He's also getting an Observer out, but that Observer before Immortal I don't think is going to catch. These two dropships now moving out in the field form, some additional Marines being produced. And this is actually a pretty formidable force, particularly if Future, he's probably going to have some difficulty dealing with defending both his natural expansion, again, very wide to deal with, and trying to defend his main, although his main is a little bit smaller. But one thing about EGNyoken, he really likes the aggressive kind of harass while you start taking territory style, so should be moving out here momentarily, maybe waiting for that stim pack upgrade, but he can actually probably push out, and almost a little bit off time on that, but he probably could afford to move forward and then wait for a little bit of position and go from there. But it looks like he's going to start moving that SCV in position to take that natural expansion while he moves forward. That Observer now pushing out. Third dropship now moving out. Stimpack should finish on the way. The Observer now, oh, this is devastating. So again, if he had just had waiting for that third dropship, but if he had just had a little bit more time on that Stimpack, would have caught Future completely off guard. Now Future looks like he's in a nice position to absorb this attack. Is kind of in a scenario where you can kind of react to it, and I don't think EGNyoken is going to get a lot accomplished with this attack now. Maybe he can try to do some Stimpack and some kiting, but Future's actually just going to brush him back, going to do a little bit of damage, might even catch a medevac, almost catching a medevac, killing a single Marauder there. I think that was a Marauder on the corner. And continue to warp in, and now EGNyoken's actually in a lot of trouble because significantly behind economically. Looks like you're going to start seeing the Immortal production. Unfortunately for Future, looks like he's got a lot of idle probes here in the background. That's really going to hurt. Perhaps just playing a little bit nervous at MLG now. He's starting to pull them back off the line, getting some additional gateways out. Yeah, a supply capped, which is going to give more opportunity to EGNyoken as well. But here comes that corner drop. It looks like EGNyoken has loaded up with several Marauders. Is just going to go for a pincer attack. Let's see if he loads up a second medevac. And now Future wandering up, he is, I don't know if he's going to take note of that single medevac missing, but this Observer out of position perhaps is not going to see that drop coming in along his flank, opening up that destructible rocks to take his third, because he already knows he has the economic lead, just going to try to hold it, and seeing all these troops on the front has to feel somewhat comfortable that EGNyoken is now trying to play that economic catch-up game. EGNyoken with a couple idle SCVs as well. Looks like he's got a Ghost Academy out already, got a couple Ghosts in production to provide those EMPs, and here comes that drop from that medevac to try to get some of these probes, and really he just needs to focus on probes, ignore everything else. Maybe get a pylon. If you can get a pylon, that'll help a little bit as well. Again, just putting Future back in the red, loading back up, backing out now as Future brings some more troops, but making Future think twice a little bit. And I gotta say, Future playing a little bit nervous, it looks like, pulling probes off gas to build things rather than other units. It looks like he's getting that extended thermal lance upgrade. He should already has a Colossus out in the field, and that number is going to continue, but he still has a pretty solid lead. Looks like NyoKen now moving forward with some dropships, maybe hoping to get something accomplished with a couple ghosts out in the field, but immediately getting spotted. Gonna back off. Maybe not, actually. Medevac's now getting a little bit separated, and this is a very dangerous, this is extremely dangerous spot. He's lucky that Future didn't attack right at this stage, but never mind that now attacking in. The Medevac's a little bit out of position to engage this, and gonna have to retreat, but he's gonna end up losing Medevac's as a result, and actually sacking some Medevacs. Turning around, going to catch a couple Zealots, but really not worth the exchange. Future now in a solid position where he can take his third, but NyoKen taking this opportunity to redrop on the main. A couple units going to try to warp in to deal with this, but a single Zealot is not going to cut it against 4 Marauders, but that will buy time, a little bit of time for Future to get the rest of his attack forces back up there to kind of cope with this. So Future actually deflecting these attacks fairly well, but again, this is NyoKen's preferred style of gameplay, which is to do that continual harass while he continues to macro up. Currently not doing too poorly economically. He's actually managed to keep the harvester count somewhat close, but Future is still taking his third, and honestly I think he could have taken that third a lot sooner. Combat shield upgrade, and it looks like a little bit of a wayward, I'm actually see if I can find a little bit of a wayward waypoint it looks like. I assume he's not just sending, maybe he is sending that Marauder actually just to check out that gold expansion, provide a little bit of defense and a little bit of annoyance there. Yeah, just scouting things out to see when Future might be taking his gold expansion or when he might be moving out. And he does see a pretty bulky army moving out, which honestly I don't, well, maybe Future will commit with this. It's got pretty good mix, but now that NyoKen once again sees that army out of position, he's gonna take another opportunity to catch this Zealot on the ground, do some more damage, pin Future back, and just use those dropships to his advantage. And now he's gonna get some additional probe kills, trying to actually focusing on the Nexus, which isn't gonna pay off, but might. Oh yeah, now he's probably gonna end up losing these Marauders. Never mind. I'm curious why Future keeps spawning in Zealots rather than Stalkers, because the Stalkers would actually suit him, I think, a little bit better in this situation. But Twilight Council up, continuing to pump those Colossi, does have map control across the middle. NyoKen building up an army. He does have some Vikings out. Is actually even as far as army count, and actually doing a pretty good job of spending the resources he has, but still pretty well locked out of his third, starting to move out to take the gold expansion now. But really, I almost feel like it's Future. It's up to Future to let him have that, really is what it comes down to. I know he's a little bit worried about this dropship, or sorry, this medevac in the back corner. I keep doing that. But really, I think if Future pushes NyoKen out of this sector with everything he has, he could really force that back, more or less, just because of the superior economy he has right now, right this second, and also the sizable army he has on the ground. But it looks like he's going to hang around, wait for Psystorm first, get some High Templar in there, maybe wait for Zealot Charge before he decides to engage. In the meantime, it looks like NyoKen is building that command center right at the gold expansion. Pretty hefty troop guarding that in the meantime, and he does have a couple units here in the backfield to provide some additional fence, and he is getting those weapon upgrades out. And this is where a lot of Protoss will have some failing, but it looks like Future is right on top of the upgrades. He will have that upgrade advantage. At least he'll have level 1 weapons to kind of balance things across the board. And still this dropship with one less Marauder in it, but still being harassing. Once again, checking out that gold expansion, and he's probably going to swing around to that low ground to see Future taking his third and get blown up immediately by those cannons. But NyoKen, if he does manage to get this space up and running, he will take the economic lead just because it is a gold expansion. But as you can see, right as this is finishing, Zealot Charge is finishing, as well as Weapons 1, as well as Psystorm, which puts NyoKen in kind of a precarious position where he's going to be running into a lot of the timed tech from Future, although looks like Future almost maxed out. Big attack from NyoKen going out towards the third, and I'm not sure where Future's army was now starting to engage. This is a huge engagement, and it's going to really depict a lot of things, and it looks like not a lot of force fields and a lot of it meddling. The Colossus not at the front door where they needed to be. The Stalkers not engaging the Vikings like they need to be, but it looks like NyoKen is getting somewhat repelled by Archons and things like that, but he took out a lot. And I mean a lot in that fight. Wasn't able to take out that third, but really dwindled down Future's attack force, you can see, and getting another drop while that was happening in the back of Future's base. And it looks like able to take out that Nexus while I wasn't paying attention, so getting a lot of Harvester kills on top of it. So NyoKen striking gold right there in that harassment, able to stop a bait, well, not doing a huge amount of damage because this was mostly mined out, but getting a lot of Harvesters, able to do devastating amounts of damage to Future Future's army, and once again catching him out of position, wandering forward with a large Marine and only a single Colossus here. There are some High Templar, and really the High Templar are going to be the key to this, and it looks like some probes even in this attack. Future being, again, playing a little bit nervous. Good Psystorm, but again, a little bit of a separated army. Nyoken dodging pretty well in and out of it, and still, wow, and catching that army in half and really devastating it, and the rest of this army kind of pinned back there, but it doesn't look like Nyoken really wants to engage, really wants to pull these troops back, get them a little bit more health on some additional medevacs. Big planetary forces just sitting there waiting as well. And now Nyoken, actually significantly ahead, I would say. He's got the gold expansion, which is going to provide him a lot of additional economy. He's going to be able to move out, take his 4th base without too much trouble, and Future's really got to think twice after that last engagement. It looks like he's 30 supply down. Let's see if he tries to fill in the difference with a lot of... This is really where the Colossus tend to be kind of a vulnerability, so probably going to fill in with a little bit more Dark Templar. Let's see if he decides to... Or sorry, it's High Templar. Let's see if he throws in some Dark Templar to mix it up a little bit and maybe force Ravens from Nyoken, at least force him a little bit of a different tech direction. Catch him off guard. Now opening up for his own gold expansion, but I don't know that he can really hold it. He does have an observer to kind of check out this Naga watchtower, and he does have another observer on the opposite Naga watchtower, but Nyoken has been on fire with these engagements, just doing a really great job. Looks like he's loading up some more medevacs for some more drops along this back corner. There is a cannon to greet it warmly, though, so should be able to minimize at least losses and damages in that regard. Might be kind of middling over this expansion just to check if it's there, and maybe get some additional kills if Future's trying to sneak something. And Future now wandering up, he is going to be able to see this base and probably see that command center right as it's floating out that direction. So excellent timing on the scouting in that regard. So definitely catching Nyoken just as he's starting to expand, take out that base. But Nyoken starting to press up to go for just a full frontal assault. The Psystorm not getting a lot done. That Colossus extremely vulnerable, already low on quite a bit of health, and a drop again simultaneously from Nyoken, doing some fantastic distraction, but unfortunately feedback on one of the medevacs, taking out one of the medevacs, but it looks like there's still a second one full. Plenty of Marauders doing a lot of harassment, a single Stalker thinking he's going to take out this attack force. Now an all-in attack from the front door. Nyoken just, oh man, catching a lot of this. I think this army is going to get rejected, but this is going to give him an opportunity to take his 4th base. Looks like trying to micro out of it, is able to micro out of it, and wow, actually somehow able to save more troops. Not, it looks like just 5 kills. I was expecting more kills. So still bleeding probes here over this expansion, but that gold expansion still warping in. Nyoken running over to take his 4th. And it looks like this is going to get cleaned up. So Future not out of this game yet, but Nyoken has managed to claw his way back into it, where I felt like he was just out of it for quite a bit of this match. But it looks like upgrades, level 2, level 1 armor, and I'm assuming that that Future hasn't caught up. Just looking at a couple of those other engagements. Oh, that Colossus getting a little bit too forward. He does have level 2 weapons, but nothing else equivalent, and that just getting caught out of position, completely wrecked. And those medevacs you can just see are just playing into his mind. There's still a medevac with 3 hero Marauders in it. Took out that Nexus earlier. So Future just got to be frustrated here at this stage. 4th base up and running, additional gas peeking through. Future running up to try to attack it, by Nyoken. Looks like he sensed it. Already has his army in position, healing up a bit. He's going to let that army descend down in there, and it looks like it's already morphing into a planetary fortress, and then he's just going to do a huge attack from behind with those units pinned in and do some group repair. So even if Future manages to take out this base, no, he's not going to manage to take out this base. The SCVs are taken out, but it looks like that planetary fortress is going to warp in. The rest of the armies is basically trapped. There's a planetary fortress, some Psystorm as well, but it is not enough. Trying to Psystorm, it looks like he did manage to get some emergency some Psystorm. Nice decision making there on Future's part to take out a couple SCVs, but this is going to be close. Oh, it does manage to take out that planetary fortress, and now is trying to take a ninja expansion to 9 o'clock, and it's starting to turn into a war of who can destroy whose expansion and how often and the most. So Future actually just skipping the gold expansion, praying that Nyoken won't scout this here across the 9. Nyoken running up for a counterattack. I think he's hoping to find a gold expansion there with a middling army, finding nothing, and now starting to push up, and he needs to not overcommit on this attack. Nice EMP, though, catching everything in there, so he's going to be able to press it forward, might even be able to push into natural, but not a lot of troops, and yeah, needs to back off. He just did not have the forces to get it done there. Still catching a good amount of troops on the retreat, distance mining here. because his main is mined out, his natural expansion is basically mined out, just a little bit. His gold expansion looking very, very thin, and it's looking pretty, well, I guess better than Nyoken's prospects currently. As far as sitting bases, he's got this mineral expansion, which is doing pretty well, and he's got the 9 o'clock, which is going to put him at a 2 base versus kind of a base and a half advantage, although one of those half bases is in fact a gold expansion. It looks like now spotted Medivacs, and I'm not sure if that was a scout or Nyoken just happened to find it. They're trying to warp in Stalkers as quickly as he could, but not able to. Zealots charging in, but nevertheless, now that this is scouted, Nyoken going to press forward with a lot of troops and being very careful, very wise actually, to kind of switch directions. Instead, going to catch Future out of position. So Future's thinking, okay, there's got to be a huge attack coming in here. Instead, Nyoken actually kind of moving back around and just kind of positioning around, forcing Future to really kind of just dance out of position there. And it looks like Nyoken being very careful with the comsats, not overcommitting any direction, deciding to back up, play a little bit more passively, and now Future feeling the metal, trying to push in before that command center turns into a planetary fortress once again, and it looks like he's going to be able to do so. And oh man, the Marauders just sitting there, and they're like, hey, do you guys feel anything? And all of a sudden just frying. SCV's getting toasted on their way down as well, and both players playing with just thin armies, and they're having to get it done with just not a lot of troops. A couple of those poor ghosts. I feel bad for them. Looks like that base is up. Planetary Fortress is, in fact, pumping for Nyoken, but still both players not doing too bad on the income tab, but not where they wanted to be at this stage. It's really going to come down to, unit preservation, and right now it's just a slugfest between these two, just fighting it out. That Colossus really just doing all sorts of damage, frying Marines like he was supposed to, but gets taken out. More units warping in, so Future using this, now this Nexus across this 9 o'clock almost as a staging position to pin Nyoken back while he takes the 3 o'clock, which I like, and as long as he keeps warping units in here at the 9 o'clock, forces Nyoken to stay back. And I didn't realize you could move a Archon before it was morphed in. Maybe that was a graphical error. Gets like, I have spawned. Goodbye. The Marauders continuing to press forward, and it looks like, more Psystorm, and those High Templar are really going to be the key to Future's defense and harassment here. Just continuous High Templar, really, and that's really what he needs to focus on. Still running at this base. Looks like he is just about ready to take this 3 o'clock. But Nyoken on top of it, starting to move out. Unfortunately, that Observer has been awesome. An absolute hero Observer for Future. Now moving down to the natural expansion. I don't know that Future can really warp in enough troops to really deal anything with this attack. Checking out that gold expansion, finding nothing. An Archon moving up, not going to get a lot accomplished against that planetary fortress. But the units coming down to try to provide some defense. Gateways getting taken out. A couple probes getting taken out. A little bit of gas production being taken out. But this is stuff that Future can, again, afford to lose. Where, again, Nyoken cannot. And it looks like that Archon will be easily dispatched by that planetary fortress when it's building versus, I'm not sure what to call Archons, energy units from beyond. In the meantime, Future pulling way ahead economically, but with all of those units out of position, Nyoken just charging into the 9 o'clock, and it looks like he's going to be able to take all those pylons, so nothing going to be able to warp in to defend. They're all going to have to come in on foot and up the ramp. Nyoken just focusing the Nexus down, able to take it out, and Future once again being denied another base. These Marauders going to die, but they died with purpose. And can't choose how you die, but I don't even remember the quote, so I'm not going to attempt. And it looks like he also took out the 3 o'clock. So Future's prospects looking thin. Future maybe making a mistake here, getting a little bit too aggressive. Instead of just retaking it, he's going to go for an all-in charge with his probes on the planetary fortress with that Colossus. Try to use the probes to absorb some damage while that Colossus clears the SCVs. And I guess now that planetary fortress doing the damage he really wants it to. And just, absolutely, this just reminds me of Muhammad Ali versus George Foreman, back and forth, just really exchanging blows here. It looks like that Colossus did manage to sneak to that high ground, and it is just, eating SCVs alive. And just, it's like, man, I haven't been fed all day, like little praying mantis running into a ant line. Just devouring them. They like disappear when they enter the mouth. Look it up on YouTube. Anyway, it looks like finally a medevac able to get there. The Colossus trying to run, but he's not going to get very far. Yeah, easily taken out. Future recapping the 9, but he is very, very thin. This is his only running base. He's only got about 40 minerals at each stage, and then he's going to be down to his bank, which is very, very small, 160 in the bank, whereas Nyoken is still mining out of that upper left base, and he still has claim over that 3 o'clock. So when more attacks happening here, Nyoken able to fight it off, just doing some nice micro, pushing back and forth, and is starting to once again press and threaten at that 9 o'clock. He does need to continue to do some of that storm dodging, and again, High Templar are going to be the key and really the unit of choice, because Future being forced to low mineral, high gas cost units that are effective, and when you're talking about that, you are in fact talking about High Templar. EGNyoken now taking the 3 o'clock. Future really can't do anything about it, unfortunately, but still, he does have a standing army. He is moving probes out to work at that 3 o'clock base, or sorry, that 9 o'clock base, and EGNyoken just now getting his economy rolling again, looking very, very thin, but still, he has an economy to work with, which makes him a threat, and if he gets that 3 o'clock base up, it is going to be just trouble for Future. It looks like he is holding out for that possibility. Future looking, he's got to be feeling desperate. He doesn't have much of an army. Both these guys basically playing around 100 to 120. Looks like a Psystorm went in, managed to get 8 kills, which is huge. Supply depot on the high ground to try to spot that from whenever it comes up. Just a little bit, I guess, a cheap unit to try to cope. But Future wanting to run in, wanting to take that out, does manage to get a dropship, does manage to get a comsat, continuing with the Psystorm. But EGNyoken really anticipating and doing some excellent dodging, does lose a ghost, but he's going to get, again, an Archon and some additional units on top of it. I almost wonder about that morph, almost an instinctual morph there from Future, which is really going to hurt him, actually. And still, okay, it looks like an SCV attacking a High Templar. Why can't we be... I'm not sure why that came into my mind, but it looks like that High Templar is going to be able to finally get that off. And I'm not sure why I wasn't looking here in the middle. Sorry, guys. That looks like that High Templar is able to push it off, but EGNyoken's army is now slowly growing, kiting against this. Not a lot of Psystorm to deal with this, and done a fantastic job of just dodging it. And really what Future needs to do is he just needs to save up the Storm, save up the High Templar, so he can kind of do that group splash to take them out all at once. But this is devastating. Mules mining here at the 3. EGNyoken does have it up and running. He can start transferring SCVs there, at which point he's going to have a deathlock on this match, and Future is not really going to be able to do anything about it, and he's just got a handful of troops to try to cope. 3 ghosts out on the ground to perhaps go for maybe a snipe, maybe take these High Templar out. Let's see if they have an opportunity to feedback, but EMP, no, it's not happening. EMP, again, obviously another nice devastating maneuver, and with that EMP, it looks like EGNyoken feels like he can charge and get it done. The Ghosts providing a little bit of shield against the Zealots on the front door. Future trying to back out, not quite able to because of custom shells. Stalkers getting eaten alive. Zealots running in, and it is just, oh man, it is death and destruction. Unfortunately, there's more blood on the ground that is blue than red for, and actually the colors match. That works pretty well. Future pulling his probes to try to defend his base, but I don't think he's going to get it accomplished. And even if he does, EGNyoken can still pour out troops where Future cannot. Does have an Archon, one last stalwart Archon. Doesn't get it accomplished. There's GG. Really exciting match. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Thank you for listening.